She bit her lip and whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." But the way she said it told me she wanted me to stay. I moved into that apartment building at a time when my life felt stuck in a loop. Same job, same days, same quiet evenings spent wondering if I was actually moving forward or just existing. It wasn't a place people stayed forever, just a small complex tucked between aging cafes and a narrow street lined with jacaranda trees. Most tenants kept to themselves. Doors closed quietly. Lives stayed separate. Except her. Her name was Elena. I first saw her in the hallway, early morning light reflecting off the polished tiles. She was locking her door, hair loosely pinned up, wearing a simple cream sweater and dark jeans. Not trying to stand out, yet she did. There was something in the way she carried herself. Grace, not performance. Confidence softened by gentleness. She looked like someone who had already lived several lives and learned something from each of them. I must have looked too long, because she gave me a small, polite smile, the kind you offer when you're acknowledging someone's presence, but keeping a careful, respectful distance. From then on, we existed like that, parallel but aware. We passed each other in the elevator, sharing those half-second glances you feel more than you think about. Sometimes, in the courtyard, I'd see her talking to Mrs. Alvarez, the elderly woman who lived on the ground floor. Elena's laugh in those moments was warm, unguarded, like sunlight breaking through clouds. But around me she was gentle, kind, reserved, not cold, just careful. It was late one evening when something shifted. The air smelled like rain even before it started. The sky turning purple-gray, the kind of dusk that makes everything feel slower. I had gone downstairs to throw away some trash when I saw her in the courtyard. Sitting alone, a half-full glass of red wine resting on the table beside her. The faint glow from the hanging patio lights traced a soft gold outline along her shoulders. She wasn't reading, wasn't on her phone, just watching the rain collect on the stone walkway. Her expression was distant, not sad, just deep in thought in a way that made the world seem quieter around her. I hesitated, hand in my pocket, trash bag still in the other, wondering if approaching her would feel intrusive. But then she looked up. Our eyes met, and she didn't look away. Not instantly, anyway. Her gaze lingered just long enough to say, "It's okay. You can come closer." So I did, slowly, a comfortable distance between us. "Evening," I said. She gave a small smile. "Evening." No grand conversation. No sudden spark or dramatic shift. Just two people sharing the quiet. We spoke about the rain, the building, the way the city always feels softer after dark. Our voices stayed low, like we were both afraid of breaking something fragile. There was no flirting, no hint of anything forbidden. And yet, there was a moment, a pause where neither of us spoke. The rain tapped softly around us. The courtyard lights flickered, and something unspoken passed between us. Recognition, curiosity, a pull neither of us would name. Not yet. A few days passed after that quiet evening in the courtyard. We didn't suddenly become close. Life continued the way it tends to, with small moments tucked between longer stretches of routine. But something had shifted in the way we acknowledged each other. Our greetings held recognition now, a familiarity, a softness that hadn't been there before. Then one afternoon, I heard a knock at my door. Not hurried, not loud, just tentative. When I opened it, Elena stood there, holding a small box of light bulbs in one hand. Her expression was calm, but there was something a little unsure in her eyes, like she was debating whether asking was a mistake. "Sorry to bother you," she said softly. "My kitchen light burned out. I can't reach it. Would you mind?" Her voice trailed, leaving space for me to decline. But of course I didn't. "Yeah, of course," I said. "Let me grab a chair." She shook her head. "I already have one set up. I just needed help." There was something incredibly human in the way she admitted that. Her apartment was exactly what I imagined. Warm lighting, wooden shelves filled with books that looked read and reread, soft throw blankets draped over a couch that had seen years of quiet evenings. A faint scent of jasmine and citrus hung in the air, familiar from passing her in the hallway, but deeper somehow, like it belonged to the space, not just her. The light fixture was in the center of her kitchen ceiling. She stood beside the counter while I climbed onto the chair. As I worked, we talked. Not small talk, real talk spoken in the kind of tone you use only when you feel safe. She told me she used to travel for work. Places I'd only seen in photos. Lisbon, Prague, Kyoto in spring. But I got tired of always being somewhere else, she said, leaning lightly against the counter, arms crossed in a relaxed way. There's a peace in staying still, once you've earned it. I told her I wasn't sure if I'd earned anything yet, that I felt like I was waiting for something to start. She didn't rush to reassure me. She didn't offer cliches or advice. She just listened, really listened, and in her listening I felt seen. When I finished and climbed down, she reached out without thinking, gently touching my forearm as she thanked me. Not a dramatic touch, not flirtation, just a hand, warm, soft, lingering a beat longer than necessary, a quiet acknowledgement of the moment shared. I felt it all the way through me. She must have felt the shift too, because her eyes softened, and she withdrew her hand slowly, not sharply. "Thank you," she said again, this time quieter, like the words carried more than gratitude. I told her it was no trouble, but the moment stayed with both of us. From that day on, something changed, not spoken, not defined, but undeniably real. We were no longer just neighbors. We were two people gently turning toward each other, even if neither of us said it out loud. A few days passed after that quiet evening in the courtyard. We didn't suddenly become close. Life continued the way it tends to, with small moments tucked between longer stretches of routine. But something had shifted in the way we acknowledged each other. Our greetings held recognition now, a familiarity, a softness that hadn't been there before. Then one afternoon, I heard a knock at my door. Not hurried, not loud, just tentative. When I opened it, Elena stood there, holding a small box of light bulbs in one hand. Her expression was calm, but there was something a little unsure in her eyes, like she was debating whether asking was a mistake. "Sorry to bother you," she said softly. "My kitchen light burned out. I can't reach it. Would you mind?" Her voice trailed, leaving space for me to decline. But of course I didn't. "Yeah, of course," I said. "Let me grab a chair." She shook her head. "I already have one set up. I just needed help." There was something incredibly human in the way she admitted that. Her apartment was exactly what I imagined. Warm lighting, wooden shelves filled with books that looked read and reread, soft throw blankets draped over a couch that had seen years of quiet evenings. A faint scent of jasmine and citrus hung in the air, familiar from passing her in the hallway, but deeper somehow, like it belonged to the space, not just her. The light fixture was in the center of her kitchen ceiling. She stood beside the counter while I climbed onto the chair. As I worked, we talked. Not small talk, real talk spoken in the kind of tone you use only when you feel safe. She told me she used to travel for work. Places I'd only seen in photos. Lisbon, Prague, Kyoto in spring. But I got tired of always being somewhere else, she said, leaning lightly against the counter, arms crossed in a relaxed way. There's a peace in staying still, once you've earned it. I told her I wasn't sure if I'd earned anything yet, that I felt like I was waiting for something to start. She didn't rush to reassure me. She didn't offer cliches or advice. She just listened, really listened, and in her listening I felt seen. When I finished and climbed down, she reached out without thinking, gently touching my forearm as she thanked me. Not a dramatic touch, not flirtation, just a hand, warm, soft, lingering a beat longer than necessary, a quiet acknowledgement of the moment shared. I felt it all the way through me. She must have felt the shift too, because her eyes softened, and she withdrew her hand slowly, not sharply. "Thank you," she said again, this time quieter, like the words carried more than gratitude. I told her it was no trouble, but the moment stayed with both of us. From that day on, something changed, not spoken, not defined, but undeniably real. We were no longer just neighbors. We were two people gently turning toward each other, even if neither of us said it out loud. It happened on a Thursday night. The day had been ordinary. Work, noise, people moving past each other without seeing. But that evening, the building felt unusually quiet. The kind of quiet where you notice your own breathing. I was heading back to my apartment with takeout in a paper bag when I saw it. A soft, dim glow coming from Elena's window, but no other lights on inside. Something about the stillness made me pause. Her curtains were parted just enough to see her silhouette. Sitting on the small window bench, one knee drawn up, her hair loose around her shoulders. She wasn't reading. She wasn't on her phone. She was just still, but not a peaceful still. A thinking too loudly still. Before I could second-guess it, I gently knocked on her door. There was a long moment before she opened it. When she did, the look in her eyes was not one I had seen before. Not guarded, not distant, but vulnerable. Unprotected. Almost like she'd been caught standing in a place inside herself she usually kept carefully locked. She stepped aside to let me in without speaking. The apartment felt different in the low light, softer, quieter, almost fragile. A single lamp glowed from across the room, casting long shadows. She sat back down near the window, pulling her sweater more closely around herself. I didn't ask what was wrong. I didn't push. I just sat beside her. Not too close, but close enough that she didn't feel alone. After a moment, she spoke, voice low and a little unsteady. "I know what's happening." She didn't look at me when she said it. She looked at her hands. "You're young," she continued softly. "You're supposed to be figuring yourself out, not getting attached to someone who's already lived half her life." I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't have words, but because I knew she needed to say the rest. She gave a small, sad laugh, the kind that isn't amusement at all. I should know better. The silence that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Just honest. I could see the conflict in her. Not regret, not disgust, not shame, but fear of being wanted, when she wasn't sure she deserved to be chosen. I spoke quietly, like the moment itself required softness. "I don't feel like I'm making a mistake." That made her inhale. A slow, deep breath as if the air itself was suddenly heavier. But instead of leaning toward me, she leaned back, just slightly, creating space that wasn't there before. She wasn't rejecting me. She was protecting herself. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she said, "I just don't want you to wake up one day and look at me differently." And instead of reaching for her, I simply stayed, in the same room, at her side, silent, steady, and present, not asking for anything, not rushing, not insisting, because sometimes love, or the beginning of it, isn't closeness. It's not leaving when someone pulls away. The days after that night settled into a silence that wasn't cold, but cautious. We didn't avoid each other exactly. We still crossed paths in the hall sometimes, still exchanged soft, polite smiles. But the closeness, the ease, had retreated, like a shoreline pulling back before a tide changes. I told myself to give her space, to breathe, to let her decide what she wanted without feeling my expectation in the air. And I meant it, but I'd be lying if I said the distance didn't ache a little. A week passed like that. Then, one night, I was sitting at my kitchen table, eating dinner I barely tasted, when I heard a quiet, hesitant knock. For a moment I just looked at the door, not moving, as though the sound itself might disappear if I acknowledged it. When I opened it, Elena was standing there. Her hair was slightly damp, rain-specked, like she had stepped outside without meaning to and realized only after she was already halfway across the courtyard. Her cardigan clung lightly to her shoulders, and she held her hands together like she was trying to keep them warm or steady. She didn't say hello. She just breathed out and said, softly, "I couldn't sleep." Not an excuse, not a request, just the truth. I nodded once, and she exhaled like she'd been holding that breath for days. I followed her back to her apartment, though it didn't feel like following. It felt like returning somewhere my body already recognized. Her living room was dim, lit only by the soft amber glow of one lamp near the couch. The rain outside was steady, a quiet, rhythmic sound against the windows. She sat down first, drawing her knees up, legs curled beneath her in a way that made her look smaller than usual, softer. I sat beside her, close enough that our shoulders could touch, but not quite touching yet. We didn't fill the silence. We let it breathe. After a moment, she spoke. I didn't pull away because I didn't feel anything. Her voice trembled just barely, the kind of tremor that comes from honesty, not fear. I pulled away because I did. The room felt warmer then, closer, like every word she said pulled us a fraction of an inch toward each other. I didn't rush in. I didn't reach for her. I didn't try to claim the moment. I simply turned my hand, palm open, resting quietly on the cushion between us. An invitation, not an assumption. She looked at my hand for a long moment, long enough that it felt like time might stop there. Then she placed her hand into mine. Not tightly, not urgently, just gently, like she was letting herself trust gravity. Her fingers were warm, soft, a little unsteady. I didn't squeeze. I didn't draw closer. I just held her hand. We sat like that for minutes that felt like a conversation all their own. Breath slowing, rain whispering outside, our shoulders eventually resting together in quiet, unspoken relief. No confessions, no promises, no rush, just two people choosing to not look away anymore. The rain softened into a steady hush against the windows, like the world outside was quieting itself for us. We stayed sitting there on the couch, hands still gently intertwined. Not tightly, not like we were afraid of being pulled apart, but like we had found the exact distance where both of us could finally exhale. Her thumb moved, just barely, the smallest motion against the back of my hand. A nervous motion, a searching one. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at our hands, as if the sight of them together was something delicate, something she was afraid might vanish if she acknowledged it too directly. I turned slightly, just enough to face her, and that made her breathe in sharply, not out of fear, but because feelings sometimes arrive all at once. Her voice, when it came, was almost apologetic. You shouldn't have come here. Not scolding, not rejecting, not closing a door. More like, this is the moment where everything could change. And that terrifies me. She bit her lip, not in a way meant to provoke anything, but because she was trying to keep something inside. A feeling, a truth, a longing. I kept my voice soft, steady, grounded. I came because I care about you. She closed her eyes, and I could see the words land inside her. Not like a surprise, but like something she had already known, but had been afraid to let herself believe. Her forehead lowered to mine, slowly, gently, like gravity was the one making the decision, not either of us. Our breaths mingled, warm, close. Her hair brushed my cheek, light, soft, familiar now. No rush, no urgency, just presence. She whispered, barely audible, I don't know how to do this. I didn't try to answer with something poetic or clever. You don't have to know, I said. We can just be here, together. That's enough. Her hand tightened around mine. Finally, firmly, and then very slowly, she leaned into me. Not a passionate sweep, not a dramatic embrace, just a simple, deeply human closeness. Her head resting against my shoulder, her body relaxing in a way that made it clear she had been holding her own weight for far too long. I wrapped my arms around her with the same care she had given me all along. Gentle, steady, protective, not claiming her but supporting her. She exhaled against my chest, the kind of exhale that only comes when someone finally allows themselves to be held. We stayed like that, breathing together, her heartbeat warm against me. The room quiet except for rain and the soft sound of trust, rebuilding itself moment by moment. This was not a kiss, not a surrender of control, not a leap into something reckless. It was simply two people choosing each other, not with words, not with promises, but with stillness. And that was the moment the line we had both been circling around, finally, quietly, beautifully, dissolved. The rain had stopped by morning. Soft sunlight filtered in through the curtains, turning the living room into a wash of gold and pale warmth. We were still on the couch, her leaning lightly against me, our fingers loosely linked. Sometime during the night we must have fallen asleep like that, held more by comfort than exhaustion. When she stirred, she didn't pull away quickly. She just blinked against the light, breathed in slowly, and let her gaze settle on our hands. Still together, still steady. There was no shock, no rush of regret, just a quiet awareness of where we were and what had already changed. After a moment, she sat up, tucking her legs beneath her again. I moved with her, giving space without withdrawing. She looked out the window at the wet courtyard below, her expression thoughtful. Not conflicted, not distressed, just deeply aware. Finally, she spoke. I spent years convincing myself I didn't need anyone. Her tone wasn't sad, just honest. Like she was naming something she had carried alone for far too long. It was easier, simpler, safe. I listened, not to respond, just to hold the words with her. And then you moved in, she said, a small, almost helpless smile forming. And suddenly I remembered what it feels like to miss something before I even have it. Those words sat between us. Soft, vulnerable, unguarded. I didn't reach for her immediately. I let the silence deepen, soften, settle. Then I said, I don't want you to feel like you have to be anything different than who you already are. She turned toward me slowly. Her eyes, soft brown touched with tired warmth, searched mine, not looking for answers, but for truth, for steadiness, for something that wouldn't evaporate. I held her gaze and added quieter, I'm here because I choose to be, not because I don't know any better, not because I'm trying to fill some empty space in myself. I'm here because it's you. Her breath caught the smallest sound, but it was real. She didn't cry. She didn't break. She didn't melt into dramatic emotion. She simply let herself be seen. And that alone was monumental. She reached out and placed her hand against my cheek, thumb moving slowly, thoughtfully. A gesture filled with gratitude, affection, and something tenderer still. No rush, no need for grand declarations, just presence. She leaned forward, not for a kiss, not for anything physical, but to rest her forehead against mine, the same way she had the night before. Only this time, there was no fear in the gesture, no hesitation, just quiet belonging. We stayed like that until the light shifted, warm, steady, familiar. When we finally stood, the world outside felt the same. But we were not. We didn't say we were a couple. We didn't label anything. We didn't map the future. We simply walked out into the day together, our steps naturally falling into rhythm. No urgency, no need to define. Just two lives that had stopped running parallel. And if this story touched something in you, if you've ever wanted someone you knew you shouldn't want, keep reading. Beautifully begun to share the same path.